You realize you have a purpose when you feel something fighting you so hard it wants you dead.
When I got my driver's license, I learned that transport trucks have a lot of blind spots. In the front, behind, and on both sides. It's actually not safe to be near a transport truck at all.
In 2007, in one summer, I almost died twice.
Baby, car, traumatic, totaled. Grateful.
I'd love to introduce you to my best friend, Pam. We've gone through a lot together. We've been best friends for over 20 years.
God's not done with me yet.
So it was 2007, and I had just graduated high school. I was moved out. I moved in with my friend's father. I moved in with Pam's dad after high school. And it was about 8 o'clock at night, and I was walking to meet my friend after her shift at work. And it was a good walk. It was at least 20, 25 minutes, and we were on the phone. While we were on the phone, I was crossing an intersection. I had the right of way, was walking, and while being on the phone with her, I was hit by a car. My friend had to listen to that. I can only imagine being in her shoes, knowing where my friend is, and hearing what happened. We're on the phone. She comes running down the street, because thankfully I was a 2-minute walk from where she was at work. And she had her headset on, and she ran so fast out of that store without telling anyone where she was going that she actually snapped the headset. She found me on the side of the road at the intersection. The woman that hit me, she left me there. She slowed down enough to stick her head out the window to make sure I was still breathing, to make sure I was still moving, but not enough to entice her to stick around. The cops couldn't do anything about it because back in 2007, we didn't really have security cameras on every corner, and stores didn't have them. Security cameras weren't as common as they are today. Because I didn't have a license plate number, they weren't even willing to investigate. Because I was alive, they didn't really care. I was okay. I was saved by the fact it was raining, and the way I was hit, I kind of slipped over the car, and I flipped and I rolled, and it damaged my knee for a couple years, but I survived. And just when you think it's over and you survive this crazy experience, something happens again. This time, the gentleman I was living with, Chris, he was taking my best friend and I, his daughter, to his cottage, to the family cottage. It's a couple hours away. We had never been there before. We were really excited to go away together. And my friend Pam had recently had a baby. Abigail, my goddaughter. And we were excited to get away for the weekend. And one evening, her father surprised us and said, "We're gonna go to a drive-in movie. We're gonna go see a double feature." That was exciting. I hadn't been to a drive-in, at least not that I could remember. And on our way home,
It was probably about 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning at this point, and we were on the highway.
in between cities, I was in the back seat with the baby. Pam was in the passenger seat and her father was driving.
At this time, I was asleep.
As most of us were falling asleep. So was the double transport truck driver beside us. He fell asleep at the wheel, and his double transport truck came into our lane. Pam's father reacted quick, but in instances like that, sometimes even quick isn't quick enough. And we were hit. Now imagine waking up.
I woke up to the sound of glass shattering everywhere.
To screaming.
All of a sudden, I let out a scream. Started screaming.
To your back being whipped. To glass shattering everywhere. Sparks flying.
So the transport truck hit our car. The tire of the transport truck got caught on our tire, and it was just dragging us along.
I just remember thinking, I can't believe I'm going out like this at 18. In a car accident with my best friend.
It was really scary. I didn't know what to do, and I didn't know if we'd make it out alive. Not only was my friend in the back seat, my dad was the driver, but my daughter, who was only probably about 8 months at this time, was sound asleep just behind the driver's seat. And this is the side where the transport truck was giving the most impact.
Now I've heard people say they see their life flash before their eyes. I didn't get that experience. I got to see life move in slow motion. Is the best way I can describe it.
I looked over at my dad, and I do remember seeing him. He's holding on to the car as best as he could. And surprisingly, he was very calm for the situation.
I remember looking at the baby beside me. And she was my focus. My goddaughter was my focus. And in the horror of the screaming and watching the car get crunched before our eyes as we were being what felt like developed and eaten alive by these tires, I reached over. And I guess I had a blanket in between the baby and I threw the blanket over her. I grabbed a hold of her car seat. And I held on with all my life. And I prayed. I prayed that we would survive.
And in that moment when I was scared, very scared, and I didn't know if we'd make it out alive, I do remember saying a quick prayer to God to watch over us. And and we're here today. So it was keeping us safe, and I truly believe that.
And I held on. And the truck driver obviously eventually came to and realized what was going on, and he swerved to the left. And the truck hit the median. It almost went over, and when it veered to the left, it flung us to the right. And I remember holding on to the car seat and bracing myself, just saying, just hold on. Hold on, because another car behind you is gonna hit you. I was expecting just the traffic behind us to hit us, to just pummel us, and we were just spinning and spinning until the car stopped. I opened my eyes, and when I opened my eyes, I found the car was tilted, and I was looking down a really large ditch, really, really big. And as I took my deep breath in, preparing myself to roll, the car was put back down on its 4 tires. And then it stopped. The next thing I remember is a gentleman prying my door open and pulling me out. And he was a large man, and I just hugged him. I think he had to pry me off of him, to be honest. I held on so tight. And the interesting thing is, him and his friend in the car, they film NASCAR crashes. They do this for a living. They actually told us that they were in their car putting bets on how many of us would survive. And they both agreed from watching it that none of us should have walked away. And to hear that, and to look at the wrecked car. It was scary. And after the police were called, the fire truck and everything, I was sitting on the side of that hill we almost rolled down. And I just cried. I just cried. But the blessing was that the baby, Abby, slept through the whole thing. I couldn't imagine going through that and listening to her scream.
When the medics and the police came to the scene, she was awake at this point. She was happy. And she was blowing kisses.
And when the firemen came, the baby started blowing kisses at the firemen. And it was the laughter and the joy that we needed in that moment. It was such a blessing. It really was.
We were lucky to have her there.
And when the firemen were examining the car and the glass everywhere, and they were shocked because they wanted to see the baby again. And they said it was because they found her car seat wasn't strapped in. It wasn't strapped in tight enough. That they were concerned that she didn't cry because maybe she was rattled around too much. But I told them I held on to it. And they checked the baby out, and then they told me I saved her life. That her body couldn't have handled it if I wasn't so quick to respond. If I hadn't protected her with the blanket and with my body, that she may not have survived.
And she threw herself
Over the baby.
over my daughter to protect her. So, again, I'm very thankful for that.
When my friend heard that, it scared us again. It scared us to know how close we were to dying that day. We didn't sleep that night, obviously.
The next day, I remember seeing the car, and it was totaled. It was a write-off. The whole side of the left side of that car, the driver's side, the side of where my daughter was on, was completely indented. The front windshield and both windows were shattered. Luckily, we came out of this wreck without a scratch.
And the only injuries we walked away was stiff, sore, just from a little bit of whiplash.
We didn't have to go to the hospital. And my daughter, 8 months old, slept through the whole thing. I'm kind of thankful for that.
So when you have purpose, and God has a plan for your life, the devil may try, but he can't succeed in ruining it. And he tried. He tried really hard to ruin my life back in 2007. A lot of things went wrong. We'll get into that later. And God allowed these trials to happen to me because he knew I would overcome them. Pam looks back at our 20 years of friendship. And when we're together, she sees God's hand in things. And I've always been witnessing and sharing my faith with her. And I love that when two or more are gathered, so is God. And when she starts to believe, she starts to see. And if I had to go through that scare and that wake-up call, for her to remember that she's loved, that God's real, then it's worth it. It's worth it. Sometimes God lets you fall to the bottom when you feel like you can't get any lower, because at that point you should be looking to him.
Oh, to this day, I still can't go near transport trucks. When I'm on the highway and I do see a transport truck, I make sure I switch lanes right away. And I make sure I'm really far ahead of them. I just pass them.
If I hadn't held on to Abby as hard as I did, she wouldn't be graduating grade 8 this year. So Abby, we love you. We're so proud of you. We have and we will continue to do anything and everything for you. Thank you so much again for tuning in this week. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. So guys, stay salty and earn those crowns.